Water is the element of life. All biological cells, be they from animals or from plants, have water as their basis. Nearly all metabolic processes in living creatures work based on water. This makes it nearly impossible to imagine any life without it, neither on Earth, nor for that matter, anywhere else in the universe. Around 4 billion years ago, the first life on Earth made its appearance in water. And that's where it remained for a very long time. It was only about 480 million years ago that the first plants left the water and began to occupy the land. It took another 80 to 90 million years for the first animals to follow them. 90% of the evolution of living things also took place in water. Water is the ultimate cradle of life. In this respect, land and the air, both of them so familiar to us, would seem to be rather hostile environments that took a while to populate. But without water, no life is possible there either. Substantial supplies of water allow the growth of abundant vegetation, offering food and a home for numerous animals. And not just for animals. Human beings, too, preferred to settle in places where water was available in large amounts, since that made life far easier. Might this be the reason why we find water so particularly beautiful? Flowing water, in particular, combined with copious vegetation, is the quintessence of a beautiful landscape. The deep turquoise of these lakes is calming and enticing, with the waterfalls in between giving the impression of power and dynamism. Water is not just important for life and the existence of the world as we know it. In numerous ways, it also plays a role in influencing and shaping the world's various landscapes and environments. Normally, this takes place through erosion, the constant onslaught of water, either as rain or as streams and rivers, carries away rocks, transporting them to different places in the form of debris or grinding them into sand underneath crashing ocean waves. Expanding and freezing water causes rocks to break apart. Thus, water has the ability to destroy entire mountain ranges, even if it takes a near immeasurable amount of time to do so. In certain places, water has an entirely different effect on the landscape. There, it does not carry away and destroy material, but rather builds it up. And it is precisely this that happens at the Plitvice Lakes in Croatia. With its diverse and distinctive colors, ranging from the light limestone hues of the rocks through the turquoise blue water and on to the deep green of plants, this area is most certainly one of Europe's most marvelous landscapes. The labyrinth of larger and smaller lakes contains numerous waterfalls and cascades, making walks here once-in-a-lifetime experiences. It is a lively area in more than just the conventional sense. This is a landscape that undergoes continual change, constantly reshaping itself. This process is uniquely interactive, with plants and rocks influencing each other. The Plitvice Lakes are situated in Croatia, in the mountainous karst region close to the border with Bosnia-Herzegovina. This unique area was declared a national park in 1949. This national park is not only Croatia's oldest, but also its largest, with a total area of nearly 300 square kilometers. This area became known thanks to the filming of several 1960s westerns based on novels by Karl May. It thus became associated with the idea of the Wild West for a whole generation, despite being located in Europe. The Treasure of Silver Lake was one of the screenplays that was shot here. Today, the Plitvice Lakes are among Croatia's most visited sites. Unique geological conditions caused the formation of a series of lakes here, bodies of water arranged much like terraces and connected by waterfalls of various sizes. One of the waterfalls, Veliki Slap, is the tallest one in Croatia with its vertical drop of 78 meters. Most of the waterfalls are much lower, however, with many of them being just small cascades. The lakes are terraced one above the other and are divided into an upper and a lower group. Water flows constantly downward, connecting these lakes successively. The length of the entire lake chain totals more than 7 kilometers, with a 156-meter difference in elevation between the highest lake and the lowest. There are presently 16 lakes, but the number of lakes is constantly changing since this area is being continually reshaped. The two large lakes, Proszczansko Jezero and Koziak, make up 80% of the total water surface. These are also the deepest lakes, with maximum depths of 37 and 47 meters respectively. There are an additional 14 smaller lakes. Due to the differing characteristics of the surrounding rock, the lakes exhibit different forms. The upper area contains a small number of larger lakes. The lower lakes, on the other hand, are smaller and more shallow. There, the flowing water has eroded its way deep into the rocks so that the lower lakes form a kind of canyon which eventually runs into the river Korana. The Plitvice Lakes formed because of the karstic rock here. Karst regions are characterized by brittle and porous limestone cliffs, which are dissolved by water over time. In many parts of the world, this special form of erosion has led to the formation of landscapes that are entirely unique. In karst topography, water hollows out numerous caves and canals. This means that many small streams disappear into the ground, continuing on beneath the surface. This can cause karst areas to look dry and deserted. In reality, though, there is abundant water here. It's just invisible most of the time. Whole streams can cut their way beneath the surface and then suddenly become visible as large karstic springs, mostly in places where flowing water meets solid karstic rock. On its way through the various caves, the water dissolves the limestone in the rocks and washes it away. The dissolved limestone makes such water rich in calcium bicarbonate. This phenomenon occurs in all of the world's karst regions. What makes the area surrounding the Plitvice Lake so unique is that the limestone dissolved in the water is redeposited elsewhere as rock with a fibrous appearance. This rock is called travertine. Travertine is not deposited here as an even horizontal layer, but rather in the form of barriers that look like natural walls. These block the flowing water, causing a lake to form. This special process is the reason for the formation of this landscape, as well as the reason why it is so unique. The process by which these natural barriers form has been well researched. A barrier forms when the speed of flowing water slows at a particular spot. Through a complicated process of interaction between temperature and flow speed, the dissolved limestone separates and solidifies as travertine. A unique feature of the Plitvice Lakes is that this process of barrier formation can even be caused by mosses, algae, and other water plants. One often sees how such plants are virtually packed in by forming layers of travertine as they are deposited. Older layers are full of petrified plant remains. It was long believed that plant photosynthesis was the cause of this unique phenomenon. Today, we know that it is actually much simpler. The flow of water is slowed and disturbed at places where plants grow. This is sufficient for travertine to begin forming. This barrier formation is a self-reinforcing process. Once formed, a barrier will continue to grow in height. Measurements have shown that it is possible for them to grow in excess of 1 centimeter per year. This means that the waterfalls that flow over such barriers also grow higher as time passes. This interaction of plant growth and barrier formation is the reason for this landscape's diversity. There are always new barriers that form and quickly rise. Since travertine is an exceptionally porous stone, such barriers are not very durable. It often happens that they are gradually worn down, or even suddenly swept away by the constantly flowing water. All this means that the landscape of the Plitvice Lakes is subject to constant change. Even the number of the lakes changes from time to time, with adjacent lakes disappearing into each other as barriers dissolve, or even re-separating. 400 years ago, a barrier divided the large lake Koziak into two parts. Though this barrier still exists, it now stops several meters below the water's surface. The water is captivatingly clear here and has a luminous turquoise hue. Thanks to the water's purity and high oxygen content, these lakes are an excellent living environment for fish. A total of 7 fish species live here. Some of these are not from the original ecosystem, having been introduced by human beings. Even crayfish, which have become rare elsewhere, populate the Plitvice Lakes in extraordinarily high numbers. Thanks to the region's special geology and climate, the Plitvice Lakes have given rise to unique, highly diverse ecosystems. What's more, this landscape has remained largely pristine, with scarcely any man-made changes and minimal air and water pollution. This is true not only of the lakes themselves, but also of the surrounding woodlands. These provide a home for a large number of now rare plant and animal species. The national park can boast 55 species of orchids and at least 300 species of butterflies. The park is vast, covering nearly 300 square kilometers. The lakes, in fact, merely form the park's core, covering just about 1% of its total area. The lion's share of the park is covered by untouched, unpopulated woodland. Remote parts of the lake's shores are even frequented by brown bear and wolves. No need to fear them, though. These big beasts are very timid and, as a rule, stay far away from human beings. To them, the bustling atmosphere around the busier parts of the lake shores is anything but attractive. The complex ecosystems in this lake region are fragile and easily damaged. Most importantly, it is now known that the process of travertine formation takes place only under certain conditions, and that these can be easily disrupted. Therefore, swimming in the lakes has been strictly prohibited since 2006. Precautions like these have not always been in place. It was a long time before the realization took hold that the park's considerable number of visitors had to be limited, and that even some restrictions would be necessary to keep the burden on the sensitive landscape down to an acceptable level. This is the only way to ensure that the Plitvice Lakes can be preserved for the future as they are today. A natural paradise undergoing constant change, a landscape where rocks are formed from water and vegetation. Conditions are entirely different in coastal regions. There, the place of flowing water is taken by breakers and sea currents. Marine animals inhabit an environment that is, in theory, virtually limitless. 71% of the Earth's surface is covered by oceans, and all of these are interconnected. And indeed, there are many animals that cross whole oceans in repeated migrations covering thousands of kilometers. Around 97% of the water on the Earth is in the oceans, an incredible quantity. Although the oceans are immensely important and occupy such a large part of our planet, we know comparatively little about them. The oceans are a difficult environment for us to access, so we can experience them only in very small cross-sections. And so they remain mysterious to us even today, despite centuries' worth of scientific research. On islands, though, we have intense contact with the sea, which is always within close reach. The countless islands on the Croatian coast are arranged like stepping stones into the Adriatic. There are said to be over 1,200 islands, although this number includes the smallest rocks. If one counts just the islands that are inhabited, the total number is 67. This world of diverse islands was created when the rising sea flooded a mountainous region following the last ice age. Today, the highest peaks of these mountains rise out of the water to form the numerous islands off Croatia's Adriatic coast. With its area of 92 square kilometers, Rab Island is not one of the larger islands, but it is still one of the best known. With around 8,500 permanent residents, it has a fairly dense population compared to other Adriatic islands. It is also a popular holiday destination, attracting thousands of visitors during the summer. Several bays there contain pebble beaches. About half this island surface is covered by woodland. This makes it unusual among the islands, as most of them are nearly devoid of trees. The dominant vegetation here consists of holm oak and tamarisk, while other areas are covered by makia, a type of shrubland containing evergreen trees and bushes. However, the island also has areas steeped in the pale beige of karstic rock, creating a striking contrast to the Adriatic's dark blue. Rab Island is among those European places with the highest number of sunny hours per year. There can be quite a bit of rain in the winter, while in summer, the island often sees dry spells that last for months on end. Together with the predominantly karstic rock, into which water seeps quite quickly, the dry weather makes the landscape here quite barren. Like on other Croatian islands, agriculture here is extremely limited. Only a few goats and sheep can be sustained. Croatia's islands are magnificent places for scuba diving. As there is hardly any sand here, with a mostly rocky seabed, the water is quite clear. One can even find coral reefs here, and the deep water plays host to small species of shark. The shore regions of our oceans are of extreme ecological importance, since these support a much broader diversity of species than does the open sea, or for that matter, the lightless reaches of the deep sea. Plants can grow in the light-flooded areas of shallow water, and rocks and coral reefs offer shelter for small fish and soft-bodied animals, which, in turn, form the basis for the food chain that supports the larger predatory fish. A look at Rab from the air reveals just how close the smaller and larger islands are to each other. In some cases, they lie just a few hundred meters apart. The next large island, Pag, is separated from Rab by an only 6-kilometer wide waterway. This labyrinth of islands makes the Croatian Adriatic a paradise for sailors.